Oh, yeah. That's the wonderful thing about gardening is no matter when you think you've mastered it all, there's always another plant, another insect, and another thing going on. That, to me, is the most thing about it. There is never a day when you don't find out something new. My resolution is the same one I made for 40 years, not to put so many damn plants in pots that need watering every day.
Yes, every day a school day, Christine.
It is indeed, but I want to build yet more compost bins and have more water butts because I love my compost, and the more compost I can have, the better I am. So another 3, which will then make 9.
9 compost bins?
9 compost bins, all full of goodies and stuff as much as I can, and all that leaf mould can go in there as well that I nick. So it's all going to be full and bursting with goodies, and then I've got plenty of compost, so I don't have to do digging either.
Thank you for sharing your resolutions for 2022, panel. Coming up later in the programme, have you ever wanted to plant a tree but been daunted by the prospect? Matt Biggs has a step-by-step guide for getting you started. And James Wong explains why a magical jungle beast is his favourite tree. But now, to your questions and some inspiration for the seasons ahead. And we're heading first to North Yorkshire. Peter Holgate is there in Brayton. Hi, Peter. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and the panel. Just before Christmas, I finished building a 6-foot by 5-foot unheated greenhouse. And I'd like to ask the panel for ideas of what I can put into it rather than, before spring.
Yeah, great question, Peter. Did you build it yourself?
Yes, it took a bit of time.
Interested particularly, Peter, in ornamentals or veg or both?
Veg, whatever.
Whatever, okay. Well, let's start with Grow Your Own guru, Bob Flowerdew. Lovely new greenhouse, just ready for something to go in there. What would you do at this time of year?
Well, the problem is it's cold and it's low light, so things aren't going to be very happy. A greenhouse is great, but it only improves the conditions. The conditions are still going to be pretty cold and dim. The best thing, I reckon, if you want to eat, is to grow lots of seedlings. These are saladings. You grow salad leaves very quickly. Big trays, sown densely, and you try and keep them as warm as possible. A little bottom heat is a marvellous thing, and with that little bit of heat, you can start off so many things. So I think he really ought to try and get some heat in there, because that makes a huge difference. Other than that, it's going to be difficult to get them going. But, as I say, trays of salad leaves. That's without that something you can start on straight away.
There's one place to start. A little bottom heat is a good thing, Christine.
Absolutely. I would invest in a load of water bottles and having people on 12-hourly shifts to keep replaying the water bottles. But now that would give plenty of bottom heat. But apart from that, I would be actually filling it with ornamentals at this time of the year. And if you think of the beauty that could be created with the ornamental grasses, the festucas, the caryxes, the juncuses, I would have berry plants or skimmias, gallnetias, pernetias, all of that sort of stuff. Incorporate the beautiful structure and frondiness of the ferns. That would look spectacular. And of all the evergreens you could bring in, so you could have a really quite nice ornamental greenhouse that would take you through to the spring, when you can take all that outside and plant it in your garden, and then start off with the normal vegetable crops that you'd grow in a greenhouse.
If you can make a propagator in there, or buy one, you need that little bit of extra heat and light. And then there's something that is worth trying, which is the new all-female small cucumbers. When I first started growing, rather a few decades ago, cucumbers were a really hard crop, and they have become so much easier. And ones can be started off, a sunny, warm windowsill will do. You can start them off in January, and you will be eating cucumbers by Easter. Honestly, I've done it year after year. These are superb. They're not cheap, but it's worth the expense, because when you succeed, you feel so good about it.
How does that sound, Peter?
Well, I'm going to go and see if I can find some bottom heat now.
Yes, definitely recommended. And there were an awful lot of ideas there that came out, but they'll all be listed on the Radio 4 website. As usual, just search for GQT. Well, let's take another question. This is from our post bag, and it was sent in by Michelle Thorpe. Michelle says, I've grown a peperomia, I think, from leaf cuttings. It's looking pretty established now. Can I remove the original leaf cuttings? It has reverted to whole green rather than variegated, which I love, but looks a little random now. Obviously, I don't want to kill it for the sake of looks. Advice much appreciated. So Matthew Pottage, our variegation lover, what do you make of this specimen?
Well, it's a lovely reverted peperomia. So it looks like peperomia obtusifolia. They're quite popular houseplants. They've got these lovely, waxy, semi-succulent leaves. They're a really good tolerant houseplant, and they will take quite a bit of neglect. The only thing they can't really take is cold, because they are warm-growing plants. But interestingly, what's going on here is you can do them from leaf cuttings, and similar to doing a leaf cutting with something like a mother-in-law's tongue, if you do a variegated leaf cutting, the plant that grows nearly always, 95% of the time, loses its variegation. So it's simply reverted, and you have the straight species there. So the cultivar, the original plant, would probably have been variegata. So she can snip away those original leaves. It won't harm that now because it's growing away. I mean, they are still photosynthesizing, they are still a food source, but as that plant is now taking off, you know, it wouldn't really notice them gone. So if that's upsetting her, having those two variegated leaves there, and it does look a bit odd, take them off, and that will continue growing just as a straight green species.
Okay, so taking them off isn't going to do any harm, Christine. Would you leave them on? I quite like how it looks.
You could leave them on, you could chop them off. Either way, it's not going to make much difference. It depends on what she likes herself. Personal choice.
Okay, it's up to you, Michelle. Thanks for your